So I've been wearing the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro since it came out about a month ago, and honestly I love it, but there's one huge flaw that was not really mentioned when it came out. And this is one flaw that I found after using this watch that almost chased me back to using Garmin watches. I can't believe Samsung let this happen, but we'll get into that in a minute. Now, like I said, it's been a month since this watch came out, the Watch 5 and the Watch 5 Pro, so it's time to take a step away from the spec sheets and take a deeper look into what it's like to actually use these watches on a day-to-day basis, as I have been. So I've been switching between the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro and the Watch 5 for the past month, and I found a lot that I really liked about these watches, as well as some cons that weren't mentioned before. Let's start off with the positives. I'm going to talk mostly about the Watch 5 Pro in this video because it is so new. The Watch 5 is a lot like the Watch 4, but I will still talk about some of the pros and cons that are specific to the Watch 5 regular. But starting off with the Pro, the first positive, I really actually do like the raised edges. I didn't think I would like them on here. I thought that, like, yeah, it's great for durability, but I thought it'd be annoying to use the sunken in screen. I actually find that it really helps the touch bezel. It makes the touch bezel experience substantially better because rather than kind of tracing a circle, you can just put your finger down and push it radially outward and use the raised edge as kind of a guide. So the touch bezel feels a lot more like a physical bezel. I also really like the look and the design of this watch. Like, sure, tick marks probably would have helped it a lot. I think it would have looked a little better with that, but overall, just a simple, durable looking watch. I really like the design there. But getting into the first con, this is one that, as I said before, I'm just so surprised that Samsung let this happen. I dug deep and I'm very confident this is not something that I did wrong. And the GPS with here, although it is very accurate when it works, it sometimes doesn't work. So I'll explain what I mean by that. First of all, a little bit of background. I always have the location enabled on here. Location is set to precise location as well, so it is very accurate. Secondly, I did not start workouts automatically. They were all manually started. Third, my phone was left at home, so that is not a variable. And fourth, I was running in a region that GPS had previously worked very well with this watch. So it's not like I was in some cave or something like that. But what happened would be I would go to start my run using the native app on here, and it says it has GPS. I'll start running, and I'll notice maybe on a 4-mile run at about the first mile, I'll notice that it's really not that accurate. It's telling me my pace is like 11 minutes per mile when I know it's closer to like 8 minutes or something like that. And so I start kind of noticing that it wasn't right. And then when I finished the run, the first time this happened, I went and I opened the app and there was no GPS, no map there at all, which means that the watch had never actually recorded GPS. It didn't actually get GPS signal. Now, this has happened to me multiple times on the Watch 5 Pro and on the Watch 5. It actually just happened more on the Watch 5. But in total, out of the probably 15 to 20 runs I've done with these watches, it only happened about 2 to 3 times. So it's not especially common. I haven't seen a lot of other people doing this, but let me just say, when you go for a 4 or 5 mile or even longer run and you get back only to realize that not only was your pace inaccurate the entire time, but it didn't record the distance correctly at all, it is very, very frustrating, and for a Pro watch, it's pretty unacceptable. Now, fortunately, this is something that I think Samsung can fix with a software improvement. It seems like what's happening is that it just doesn't recognize GPS initially, and it starts to work out, and it never adds that back in. But even when GPS is recorded, I noticed that the Strava link is also sometimes a little bit trash. So there are many runs that the GPS is tracked and it works well, but for some reason, when I run 4 miles, it'll show up in Strava as 3.4 miles. Why is that? Well, I dug deeper into this, and I believe that on some runs, it'll kind of be spotty with GPS in the beginning until about maybe half a mile into your run, and then GPS signal will really be more solid. So I think really what Samsung needs to do here is similar to what we see on Garmin watches, which is you start a run, and rather than just starting right away, it makes you wait. And it says acquiring GPS, and then once it gets GPS and it locks in, then you can start. I wish Samsung did that. I think that would be such a good thing to do before a run, just to make sure you have that accuracy, especially on a Pro model. But right now, it's not something that they do by default. Now, getting back to the positives, as I mentioned before, when the GPS does work, it is pleasantly accurate. On a 4-mile run, I'm usually within less than 1/10 of a mile off. So on 4 miles, it might say like 4.05, but again, very, very close, and I'm happy with the accuracy there. The heart rate accuracy is also very impressive on here. I showed this in my original review, but comparing this to a known accurate Polar H10 heart rate strap, it does a great job. Optical heart rate sensor, they did a good job of, they said it's flatter this year, so it's supposed to have more contact with your skin and get a better reading. And I found that that is, for the most part, true. I'm able to wear this watch slightly looser than I do other watches, so it is more comfortable, and at the same time, still gets great readings all the time. I also love the in-depth analytics that you get with running, so it'll tell you all about your step symmetry, as well as how to improve things like leg spring stiffness, and a lot of really deeper things that give you more insight into how you're running. Getting into a drawback with the regular Galaxy Watch 5, not the Pro, I originally liked the design of this one. I thought it was just a nice looking watch until I set it down next to some other watches, for example, the Apple Watch Series 7, and I realized just how large the bezel is on the Watch 5. I understand it's used for touch bezel, but still, in 2022, it just seems like a little bit too much black space around the display. I wish they would make it smaller, or maybe put a rotating crown on there, or do something to make it a better screen to body ratio. The Pro, I think, does a better job having the raised edge around there so you don't see the bezel nearly as much. If they put tick marks, it'd be even better yet. But getting back to the Pros, again, with the design on either one of these, the buttons on them are very tactile. I love the buttons. They just feel nice. They feel premium. And of course, they also double for bioimpedance and ECG and things like that. So the buttons are really a great design by Samsung. The Pro model, I think, does need at least one more button, or at least something to actually move. So when you're running, if you're sweaty, or if you're whatever you're doing, sometimes when you're doing workouts, using a touchscreen is not always that convenient. So with a lot of other watches, I like to disable the touchscreen during workouts and just use buttons to control music and laps and things like that. And so with this watch, I find that the buttons, like, you really need at least one more button on here, but I don't know, it is what it is. Something I really love about the Pro, as I've been saying before, the comfort for this one. I know people were really worried about the size of this. Originally, I was worried before I got it, but it's a lot lighter than it looks, and with the strap, I find it's just incredibly comfortable. I love how you can just put it on and take it off very easily. And sure, you can get this strap with other watches as well, but with this one, it just feels especially well implemented, where it's comfortable. It doesn't really feel like too big of a watch. And at least on my wrist, like you can see right there, I don't think it's actually, like, it doesn't really look bad. It doesn't look too big. And I have a pretty average sized wrist. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll show it on screen what it is in inches and centimeters for your reference. But like I said, super comfortable despite the size. The weight's not bad at all. And I don't have any issues with the dimensions. However, as DC Rainmaker pointed out, the thickness specs can be misleading. So when they say the thickness is 10.5 millimeters, it's actually about 15 millimeters according to DC Rainmaker. And what they did not include is basically entire back. They only included the side. So if you're somebody that has a good idea of what 10.5 millimeters is, this is thicker than you'd expect. I don't, off the top of my head, know what 10.5 millimeters is exactly on a watch. So for this, it's about as thick as I expected, but it doesn't feel bad at all. So again, shout out to DC Rainmaker. Check out his video on the measured thicknesses and how they're incorrect on actually all watches. Very interesting on how he did that. Getting back to the positives, I love the battery life on this watch. Now, some people might say, hey, this is measured in days. Garmin and Coros and Polar measure in weeks. That's fine, I get it, but this is just a very different experience. You're getting a much higher quality display, you're getting more apps on here, better connectivity with Wi-Fi and a better interface. And so with all things considered within what this watch actually does, the battery life is substantially better than a lot of other watches, like the Apple Watch or the regular Galaxy watches. And so having just that extra day or two of battery, for me, makes it feel a lot more like I can actually track my sleep, I can actually use this watch and not have to plug it in all the time, and I'm not always worried about being on like 10% battery. So I love the battery life on here. That's a huge positive. And if you like the Galaxy Watch 5, that the battery life alone might be a reason to upgrade to this model. And of course, this is Samsung, so it's no surprise the display on here is absolutely fantastic with great color, great brightness, very readable in broad daylight, and a great always-on display that just makes it look more premium than a lot of other watches. And of course, as far as watch faces go, I'm one to change this like all the time. I love having different watch faces, so the whole selection of watch faces is great on here, but I especially like the Pro ones where you really get more out of it that makes sense with the Pro model here. So we've got like a compass on the outside, as well as it shows you like the whole meter for your battery life or whatever you want, step count for the day. And of course on the bottom, a little quick tap to start a workout or something like that. But however, I did notice that the compass is not especially accurate. Like, once it's calibrated, it's not bad, but if you spin it around, it'll be all wacky and again, not exactly correct. But the positive here is that I think most of the issues I mentioned in this video related to the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro can be fixed with software. I think that this is a really easy fix for Samsung to just come out with an update that really covers all of these bugs. And besides the software bugs, the Galaxy Watch 5 is really a solid device for Android users. I think that anybody who has an older Android watch would probably really like coming up to this one, getting Wear OS 3 on there, getting Samsung's integration as well, and of course getting a more durable and longer battery life in a watch. Really a great design overall. Now, as far as the Galaxy Watch 5 regular, this feels a lot like the Galaxy Watch 4 from last year, so between the two, it's kind of a toss-up whichever sale you find, but between this and the Galaxy Watch 5 regular, I was previously recommending the Watch 5 regular because you're just getting so much more value out of it when you look at the price versus, it has the same chip, same storage, same RAM, really the same experience. But I'm gonna say it again, I'm still gonna be wearing the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. If you can afford it, it's definitely a better device all around. I like how it looks and feels, but leave a comment below. That's my experience from wearing the Watch 5 Pro for the past month. What do you think of it? I'm Michael Bryan, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.